Did you get the gavel or I need to do it again? Huh?
Oh, you can
Okay.
do it again just for good measure.
All
though.
right. The Board of Review of Woodland Park meeting on January 16th is hereby called to order. And Mr. Burgess is going to do roll call, please.
Chairman Mac McVicker,
Here.
Vice Chair Derek Carpenter,
That's here.
Jeff Cahill,
Here.
Martine Vogel,
Here.
and for the record, Jeff Smith and alternate Cole Swanson are not here.
Cole, Jeff, are you zoomed in?
There's nobody out there.
Nobody.
Martine, could you please turn your microphone on so that it's green?
Press the button.
Yes, please. There you
Thank
go.
you.
Thank you. Oh,
All right, if everybody would please stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. You may be seated. We do have a quorum. Our next item of business is election of officers.
I nominate you for president.
Chair, maybe?
Okay. Chair.
I nominate Derek for vice chair.
All right.
All right. I don't think we have to have a second on those.
I'll second those.
Okay,
I'll second yours, you second mine.
But she can second one of them.
All right, there we go.
Dave, you got all that confusion? Okay. All in favor of Mac McVicker for chair and Derek Carpenter for vice chair? Say aye.
I,
Aye.
All opposed? Yes, that's it. Karen, I will take that raise effective today.
I got some peanuts in the office,
Same.
Peanuts in the office.
but we
the
value
time.
everything else you bring to the table.
I'm sorry.
We value all you bring to the table, just compensation's a little thin.
Okay.
Raise taxes.
So the next item on the agenda is the approval of the minute meeting from last April, folks. That's like 9 months ago.
That's why you don't get paid.
That's why I don't get paid the big bucks. So Dave, I just want to let you know, I've read all this and you captured it the way I remembered. Did anybody else?
I thought it was very good.
I thought it was complete. There was only one error I discussed with Dave and he corrected that.
Okay. For Martine, you don't know, but he is our editor in chief and
Perfect.
proofs all this stuff.
It is perfect.
I move then to approve the minutes of the meeting from April the 18th, 2024. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Minutes are approved. Dave, your wonderful job as always. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
And so I don't forget like I did 1 or 2 times, I'm signing it right now. You're welcome. We have no consent items, no complaints, no variance or appeals hearing, no unfinished business, no new business unless somebody has something I'm unaware of.
It's great. There's no complaints.
And we're going to turn it now to Mr. John Walton, Deputy Building Official from PPRBD. And then after that, just to prepare Dave, do you have the metrics for maybe the last 2 or 3 months? Or maybe for 2024 in total, how many permits and commercial and homes and all that?
I did not pull that.
Okay,
And it's funny you mentioned that because we were just talking about that earlier today, in terms of needing to generate those kind of annual reports and such. So looks like Mr. Welton might have some in terms of what PPRBD did, but in
Yep.
terms of like the planning department, we're a little behind, but working on it because we literally were just talking about that at about 1:05 today. I have a
So-
recording of it too.
I'm going to turn the meeting over to John Walton. and you have the floor, sir.
Well, thank you, Mac. Good afternoon, everyone. Y'all got to me a little quicker than I thought you would. I figured you could have rambled a little longer. So, from PPRBD side, just wanted to get up here, see some friendly faces. Haven't seen y'all since April, I believe, so it's nice to be up here. Couple of updates on our end before I go over any of the numbers I've put together for you. Good news, we actually have no new codes this year that are going to have to get implemented.
Hallelujah.
So obviously, most of you remember we did our regional building code update in 2023. So that was at the end of June. And then last year we had to implement the new 2021 IPC and the 2023 NEC for state requirements. So fortunately, there is nothing on the docket for code change or code updates this year. With that said, as always, we are going to be closely monitoring the upcoming legislative session for any House bills, Senate bills, or anything that could impact the construction industry. With that said, we're pretty good at that, but if there's anything that City of Woodland Park or this members of this board, come across that pique your interest, feel free, contact us. You can send it to me, you can send it to Roger, whoever. We've got a pretty good team that keeps an eye on the goings on at the state, to include a lobbyist that we bring on. But, they're really good at times at burying things in a House bill or a Senate bill that may not even have anything in the name that has to do with construction. So please keep in mind, anything y'all see like that, if it piques your interest, put it on our radar. Yes, sir.
This is Jeff Cahill. I was curious, I recently had an appointment with a client that ran a little bit late because he was interacting with someone else, and the side talk was somebody, probably Governor Polis, in the state is mandating no more single-family home approvals. They're on a single lot based upon a certain size, and they need to have a second dwelling within the confines of that property. And I said, what kind of nonsense is that? Do you know anything about that conversation?
So my awareness of that particular element isn't necessarily anything impacting the building side. That is something that the zoning agencies are going to be involved in from a land use perspective. Our team, through a lot of conversation on that particular topic, isn't necessarily that no more single family homes are going to be approved. It is certain jurisdictions have certain land use codes of where you can have a second dwelling, where you can have an ADU, whether that ADU is detached or whether that accessory dwelling unit is internal to the house. So think about a 2-story home. You want to finish out the basement, turn it into a rental. Essentially, on our side, we have to look at that as a second dwelling because it would have to meet all the code required provisions for a dwelling. We have to have a place for cooking, sleeping, sanitation, and then one minimum size room for living. What the state was pushing forward was a statewide bill that would supersede local authority over the zoning element to deny someone the ability to put an ADU, a second dwelling, on a residence.
To deny it, not encourage it.
Right.
So just, this is Mac McGuicker. Woodland Park already has a provision in the ordinances here for ADUs. They passed that a few years ago. And I don't think there's very many ADUs in this town even today after several years have gone by. Dave, Karen, do you know anything about that?
No, we do have a few.
A few.
That are going on, yeah, and then our code, has controls on them, basically for the size of what it can be. Right now, our code says that if it's detached, it has to be above a detached garage. It can be no more than 40% of the primary dwelling unit's size. And we also have proximity controls. So in our urban residential zoning district, no more than 10% of the properties within a 300-foot radius can have ADUs. In our suburban residential, that radius is 600. So there's things along those lines. And of course, we have, architectural guidelines that go along with it to make sure that it closely matches the primary residence, blends well with the neighborhood, things like that. So that's how our code works right now. So
I'd like to add that last year there was a bill that was passed that does have some revisions or it's potentially going to require us to make some changes around our ADU regulations. We're in the process of trying to restructure our zoning and subdivision regulations, and we are already gone through that section around ADUs prior to that bill passing, but we will be dusting that back off and running it through our city attorney, and you will likely see those revisions happen as part of that overall code change. So I think one of the things that happens is we lose our ability to separate them, in terms of that radius. So I think that's probably one of the biggest pieces that goes away. We should still have those architectural controls
Right.
and guidance and such. In fact, we're working with a property owner right now, helping them get there.
So is the state encouraging or discouraging based upon land use and the availability of homes and land that's there that can be augmented?
It's
to help?
encouraging more ADUs.
Good question.
Okay, John. back-
So, just briefly, a couple of quick big numbers, just so you're kind of aware of what our workload has been, as a company throughout all of our jurisdiction. The two big ones that stand out to me, total plan submittals. So PPRBD throughout the calendar year of 2024 performed 12,338 total plan reviews. 145 of those were done for the city of Woodland Park. As it relates to inspections, PPRBD as a whole performed 296,112 inspections throughout the calendar year last year. 4,381 of those were performed within the city of Woodland Park. As far as Woodland Park goes on the permit side, 804 total permits were issued in the calendar year last year within the city. And total added construction valuation of those 804 permits within the city limits of Woodland Park totaled $54,601,621. So that is added construction valuation that was put into the city last year. So that I was surprised to see the number that high. That's a good year. And for any of you that's interested, the single largest permit within the city of Woodland Park that we permitted in the calendar year of 2024 was a new crew support building right over here on 27 or 67 for Core Electric. And that permit was, I believe, pulled in January of 2024. So that single building was a little over $8 million of that $54 million valuation.
Was Karis's residence the year before? Okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
Right.
Those were all pulled within a 6-month period. They were
but-
pretty close together.
In 2023 then.
Yes.
What was that evaluation? Anybody remember?
We'd have to look it up.
Yeah.
I don't
Alright.
care. I don't carry the statistic in my head.
Go.
If I recall the ballpark, I think those were around $6 million.
The 12 million total, yeah.
That seems right. At least based on my recollection.
So the amount of plan checks that you did this year, the 24, what, how, was that up over 23?
That I don't know. I
Okay.
can look real quick if you'd like to know.
I just wondered if the volume was more than last couple of years, actually, but.
Well, let's take a look.
Well, and I think we did have a bit of a rush in 23 because people were, especially around residential things and such, were trying to get things permitted before the code change went into effect.
Sure.
So that, I think, gave us a little bump especially the first half of 23, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, because Mark McNabb pulled a bunch of permits for those homes over there. Yeah, so he could get in under the old rules.
That's not the one across from Walmart, was it?
Yeah, across the street there.
The duplexes,
Soldiers in a row.
yes, they are
But just slight variation in stucco.
slight.
All right, John Welton Regional
what they
Building.
want.
So the total plan submittal for 2023 was 177. So 2024, a little bit lower than 2023. Karen, very good point that a lot of people were trying to permit
Under the old code.
under,
Mhm.
you know, May, June and July. July. we
I'm sure
had a-
your bar graph kind of wiggles
Yeah,
that way, yeah.
June is definitely the spike, in that, and then.
I just know when Dave was stressed. Juggling rapidly.
So then, just to give you a comparison, again, 2023, more plan submittals, total construction valuation within the city of Woodland Park for 2023 was just over 70 million as opposed to 54 million last
Okay.
year.
That's, yeah. It's almost 50%.
John, you still have the floor, sir.
Well, really, I mean, since the good news I gave earlier that we don't have to really talk codes today, I really don't have a whole lot else unless y'all have any specific questions. I wanted to make sure you had some numbers that we had gotten calculated and, you know, give you a heads up that anything you see coming across the state floor, if it concerns you, let it concern us as well. But other than that, sometimes no news is good news.
It is. Especially after, I still remember my shock at the first time I read House Bill 22-1362 in April of 2022 of the new Energy Czar and all that. Now, that brings up a question. How much interaction does PPRBD have with, I call him the Energy Czar? I haven't gotten any notices on any more public meetings or anything. They've kind of dropped off my radar. What do you guys see?
Well, there was a notice that a public comment period was opened up until February 7th, I believe, for comments for the carbon neutral code and the updates to the model electric and solar ready code. Now, on our end, we still feel like we're in a very good position because of getting the code adoption done kind of at warp speed like we did ahead of that July 1st deadline last year. So right now, we still feel like we're in a good spot. We do not have a code change looming and therefore do not have to move to the state-wide energy code. Now, part of the other element of that current open public comment, and again, I believe the date is February 7th, when that public comment period ends, is their incorporation of the 2024 energy code into the state energy code.
And I'm okay with that.
After reading it, I would not oppose it. If I had to go, you know, I'm not necessarily speaking for all of RVD maybe right now, but there are actual advantages in the 2024 energy code over the unamended 2021. I think ICC and the powers that be that put that model code together have learned a few things from the 2021.
Mhm.
There are potential new exceptions added into the 2024. One big one that instantly comes to mind that we've run into a few times is whole house mechanical ventilation testing and the requirement for testing for, you know, kitchen exhaust. Currently, the exception to that is you don't have to test anything as long as it only has one elbow in it, 190 degree, and it's not over 10 feet long. Well, the reality with a lot of construction projects is sometimes you have to work that kitchen exhaust around a beam or a girder, which requires two elbows.
Just cut a hole in the girder.
Yeah, we would rather not. So this is one of those examples where I think they learned from the 2021, because now that exception in the 2024 has been updated to allow for up to two elbows. So there's one advantage. You know, another thing that I noticed was from the 2015, which we were on, and then kind of transitioning over the 2018, we jumped from what the energy code in the 2015 allowed as a simulated performance path. In the 2021, it totally got away from that to a total building performance path. Ironically, in the 2024, the simulated performance path has come back in. So modeling under the 2024 is now is back in play. And the advantage of that modeling aspect is you can do trade-offs. So that is another great advantage. And one thing that we shared with our HBA members, you know, just because we don't adopt the 2024 doesn't mean that we don't have a path to utilize it. If there's a builder that finds a path in the 2024 that is a better path for them, we can still allow that through an alternative material and method application. So that application gets submitted, it's an administrative approval, and then that gives us a path to utilize something out of the 2024.
And the 2024 dropped the attic insulation from R60 to back to R49.
Yes, it did.
So I skimmed through the 24 IECC and I liked it. I liked it better than the 21.
I couldn't agree with you more. So like I said, I've been through it, both the commercial and the residential side. I think, to me, it's a much more user-friendly code, not as user-friendly as the 2015. Well, I'll go ahead and say that disclaimer. But to me, it is a much more user-friendly code with options that the 2021 doesn't have. So looking long-term, the reality is we have to do another code adoption before 2029. We have to. And, you know, if by that point the state is still on the 2021, granted, we're going to have to take in all the other bits, the model electric, solar ready, But if the state is still on the 2024, by the, at the time we're doing our code review, end of 27, 28, I think that code could be a much better alternative to the 2021 from an unamended standpoint.
Correct. Any other comments from the members of the board? Martine?
No, I just think that's kind of good news.
Yeah, it is good news.
Mhm.
You said 290s. Is that 445-degree angles?
I would have to get back in there and double check and make sure they don't have a limitation on number of connections as well. But I can, if it would be of advantage to you, I can look into it and let you know.
It's okay.
Now, what about the 10-foot limit? Did they allow any wiggle room on that to go further?
Based on the code, no, there is no wiggle room.
Okay. Cause I'm thinking of homes with a cooktop island with a range hood above it and a high ceiling. By the time it goes up and it goes to the outside wall, you're well over 10 feet.
In a lot of cases, if the builder was wanting to look at that as an alternative option, yes, that also might mean they had to look at alternative options of how to exhaust that. So potentially, instead of aesthetically making it more appealing to run out the sidewall, it might need to just go straight up to kind of keep within that 10-foot limitation. But on our end, through an alternative, the only way we can get to that allowance is through an alternative material method, which means we have to follow that code as written, unamended, essentially. So on our end, through an AMM, we wouldn't have any wiggle room.
Could an architect or whoever the permit holder is appeal for a variance on that? Would they get it if they did?
The hard, and again, here's my non-legal answer. To me, it would be hard to apply for a variance to an unadopted code,
Gotcha.
which could also be a quasi-legal answer. The only path we have to get to a code that's not adopted is in chapter 1 of our regional building code, which specifically has a section for giving the building official the ability to approve alternative material and method requests. If you think about the way that the variance works, the charging language for a variance is to this code.
It is good.
And this code verbiage refers to the code that is adopted.
Thank you. Anything else?
I don't have anything.
No. Dave?
No.
Karen,
I have 2 items, sir.
go ahead.
Uh,
You got the floor.
Depending upon how much you all follow Hot Woodland Park News, you have probably seen that City Council is in the process of putting together a charter review committee again. And I know Mac has brought up before, and we're very aware of it within our own department, the current term limits associated with you folks that serve in a voluntary capacity on our various boards and commissions. So that is one of the items that we have asked that committee take a look at. And the process is, if they decide that this really should be readdressed, they propose things to City Council, who then ultimately decides yay or nay in terms of whether or not this will go on a ballot, because the charter is put in place through an elected process. So we've got at least a year ahead of us of that committee doing its work behind the scenes to review the entire city charter. You can find that online on the city's website under charter and code if you want to go in and read that first section. And I cannot remember exactly which section the charter or the term limit shows up in, but if somebody really wants it, I can find it for you. So that was my first item, just to let you know that that is in play and we have done our part to make sure that that does get looked at and the concerns that there are around that, those limitations. And then the second one is, I believe you've heard us talk before that we've been, over the course of this past year, working to implement new software called Civic Gov, which will help us with permit tracking. And it's slow but steady progress. It's very slow, very methodical. So that's the bad news, is it's taken a while. The good news is we are now at a point where we are going to start to work with our individual frequent flyers to have them help us kind of beta test the system and that portal before we really go live. Because as we've seen with just our own work with it, it takes a little bit of time to make sure that you're not running into little error codes, things like that. So let's just behind the scenes quietly work with our seasoned professionals that are going to be the primary users and have you all help us troubleshoot this and finesse it before we do any type of open, broad, this is how you do, this is where you submit your permit. So that's probably going to take us a while too. So it's very much a very slow, methodical approach that we are taking with all of that.
So that begs the question of Dave, do you need another bag of bubble gum to patch all the holes in?
No, actually, it seems to be really robust.
Okay.
There's just a couple of minor little bugs we've been working out, but internally, we've entered about 300 permits this year just to get used to using it and playing with it and whatnot. And yeah, I think, there's a bit of a learning curve, but I think it'll be really effective for the end user or public portal portion of it, because they'll be able to track the permitting process and the status of where it's at, and how it's going through there. And most of the communication is going to be done through email. The system set up to where it can be, it's an automated kind of system. So I think once we work all the bugs out and people get used to it, I think it will really be a benefit to the public.
Now, does this have any tie-in or handshaking with PPRBD software?
They're kind of they're parallel systems. There's not an interconnect across them.
So will the user have to go to both portals, the city and regional, to see what's going on?
Depending upon what they're looking at. If they're looking at the building permit itself, that's still PPRBD. If they're looking through the zoning approvals, that's still through us.
Okay,
And then I will actually say all of our 2024 applications should be uploaded into that system. Because I know at the beginning of the year, we had some that when we were first troubleshooting, but I actually had as a training exercise, our newest guy go back and he got to upload all that data entry. So he's incredibly proficient now. So no, it's coming along. It's just, as I said, it's just a slow and steady process. And yeah, because the goal was to get off of Access because that database was getting little twitchier all the time. And yeah, we are off Access for our database into Civic Gov.
Access is
okay.
So those are the two items I wanted to just talk about and fill you in on terms of what's going on. So thank you.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thanks for those updates, especially on the charter review for term limits.
I know that was passionate for you.
It is. Because it's not easy to fill openings on these boards, and not just this board, but other boards with qualified people.
And your letter that you had written back in August, our city clerk definitely still has that in her possession. I saw it in her charter review notebook. We talked specifically about that she's got it.
Thank you.
You're welcome, sir.
All right, I'll ask one more time. Throw it open to any more comments, questions from anybody. We're a little ahead of schedule. All right, in that case, I declare this meeting adjourned.
Okay.